hosting a forum for one of the leadership contenders, Chris Miggs, who's kindly come along tonight and did his time and spring his credentials for the leadership. It's a very interesting time for us as a party. It's actually a great process that for the first time we get to vote as rank and file members. Both the caucus as a party and rank and file members get to vote, which I've always thought was a good idea. I think it's a good democratic process that the people who participate in the life of the party actually get to say it in the party. Just a bit of acknowledgement. I apologise in advance if I forget anyone, but we've obviously got the Mayor of Bayside, Bill Ceremonial. Awada, Joe Awada, Ali come in from Liverpool, welcome. We've also got local member for Bankstown, Tanya Mahaley. We've got the member for Somers Hill, Joe Halen. Inimitable member for Rockdale, Steve Camper. Councillor Nick Catchus is with us here. And have I forgotten anyone?
From the juice committee.
Alright, so this is us, and of course Secretary of our Barton FEC, Louay, who does the power of work behind the scenes to put these things together. So we've got the Secretary of the largest union in New South Wales, and in fact Australia, the Shop Distributive Allied Workers Union, SDA, Bernie Smith. That about covers it. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Chris Miggs.
Thank you. I'll come around the front. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate you coming out on a cold night, away from your families and away from responsibilities at home, away from the kids maybe, or your partner or your spouse, to participate in democracy in the Labor Party. I wanted to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, and I also want to thank all of the dignitaries arranged here. I really appreciate all of their time and their support of my candidacy for the leadership of the Labor Party. Look, I don't want to give a long set-piece speech. I really want to take questions from all of you about the direction of the Labor Party. But an event occurred this week which in some measure sums up where New South Wales is at the moment. And it was in Cabramatta, and it was a family called the Mbuto family. The father's name was Ezekiel Mbuto. And this fella set up a coal-fired heating lamp inside his apartment in Cabramatta because he had 3 kids who were shivering and he was worried about them. And the carbon monoxide poison from the heating lamp nearly killed the entire family. They were rushed to hospital and in intensive care. And why did he do it? Because the family had air conditioning, but why did he do it? Electricity too expensive. In the 21st century, in Australia, in 2019, in one of the richest cities in the world, in metropolitan Sydney, a family nearly killed themselves because they couldn't afford electricity. And I don't know if you remember this, but at the last state election, the Liberals and Nationals said, if you allow us to privatise electricity, your electricity bills will fall.
Yeah.
They will fall. Just trust us to sell your electricity company that all of you own, and then through the magic of the invisible hand and the marketplace, electricity prices will fall. They've increased 60%.
Yeah.
And the people who can't pay it are disproportionately the people we need to help. And it's a story we need to tell in our communities. Because Poor people, people at the lower end of the socio-economic scale, they can't even afford to heat to make sure that their families are warm in a bitterly cold Australian winter. It's a sad set of circumstances, and what makes it more bitterly disappointing for all of us is that the Labor Party didn't really talk about electricity privatisation at the last state election. Even though this was such a huge issue for the vast majority of people that live in this state, we were absent on it. We didn't talk about it. The government's privatised something like 40 things that were owned by the people of this state, whether it was Port Kembla, Port Botany, Ausgrid, Transgrid, births, deaths and marriages, anything that wasn't bolted to the floor was privatised by the government. And all of you got for it was $23 billion worth of debt because we're not getting the revenue that we used to receive from all these companies, and a whole bunch of toll roads, which are extremely expensive to pay for. The most expensive in the world, the most expensive toll roads in the world. The most expensive toll roads in the world. That's what you got thanks to the Liberals and Nationals. And I think what the people of New South Wales need from the Labor Party, and need from me if I was elected Labor leader, is yes, point out where the government has gone wrong, explain what the implications of their mistakes are to the people of this state, but then offer something different, an alternative vision for New South Wales. Because we can't be professional critics just sitting back there like an ombudsman pointing out every time the government does something wrong. I think the people of New South Wales want an alternative government. They want a positive and optimistic plan for the future. And that's our responsibility. That's all of our responsibility. We certainly can't sit around for the next 4 years waiting for the election in 2023 before we pull our finger out and actually start standing up for the things that we believe in, like the ownership of these public assets and these public utilities, like the ownership of Sydney Water by the people of New South Wales. We have to make that argument today, tomorrow, and every day between now and the next state election in 2023. If we don't do that, the Liberal Party will get away with murder. Now, I think that there are things that we're not doing well as far as New South Wales Labor is concerned. I am standing because I offer change. I don't believe after 3 election losses and 12 years in opposition, at least before we have the opportunity of forming a majority government, I don't believe that all it requires is one last heave and we'll get over the line. I think we need to start from the bottom and change what we're doing. And I think we need to turn to a new generation of Labor Party leaders, people that haven't necessarily been scarred by the history of the past. I think we need to admit what we're doing isn't working and we need to change. And I think we need to develop a plan that sees the people of New South Wales vote for Labor and not just against the coalition. A positive vote for us. If they cast a positive vote for us, not only will we get into government, but we'll actually have a mandate to do something in this state. To fix public education. To ensure that we've got a first-class health system. To make sure that transport, public transportation, is at the heart of our cities. If we do these things, even our criticisms of the government will become sharper, because we'll be able to say not only are they doing something wrong, but we've got an alternative that's better. Now, what's been happening over the last couple of weeks as the leadership election has really kicked into high gear is people have said, well, how are you going to make that argument? Because parts of the media and the Liberal Party and the National Party are fantastic at attacking the Labor Party. They're world class at it. And they've been very successful at it too. But I still believe that if we have got a strong agenda, it's a positive and optimistic plan for the future, and we put that against the coalition's best plans, and both of them are fully debated over the course of the next 4 years, we will win. Because our ideas are still better than their ideas. And what are those ideas? Well, the first thing is, I think, a livable city. Sydney's not working for millions and millions of people. It's becoming congested, the built environment is becoming uglier, and there's next to no public infrastructure that's going in to our communities. Virtually nothing. In my electorate of Cogra, where we are tonight, there's 10,000 new residential units that have been planned, but not 1 square metre of new open space. So where are the kids going to play soccer? Where are you going to take your dog for a walk? I've got a school in my electorate that has 30 kids graduating year 6 and 110 going into kindergarten. And no provision for new buildings or teachers or anything. No one bothered to tell the principal that they were building a ton of new apartments around the school. I mean, it's a government that's not working. They're not talking to each other. And as a result, within our communities, we're all missing out. And the second thing is a jobs plan. Now, the Labor Party hasn't had a jobs plan, a detailed jobs plan for nearly 20 years in this state. We haven't explained to people where we think economic growth, opportunity will come from. We've just left it up to the marketplace. There was a really interesting intervention this week that said, in Australia today, we mine the core components for iPhones, iPads, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles. All we do is dig it up and ship it off overseas for someone else to create those products, to have those jobs. I mean, I think there's a role for government in ensuring that we can do those things here in this state. So that if the world spins away from coal earlier than we think, we do have a jobs plan for our regions so that people have opportunities. And if we're not rolling out a jobs plan, if we're not explaining how we're going to fix public education and health, if we're not doing those things that people care about, they'll vote for One Nation, or they'll vote for the Liberal Party, or they'll vote for the Shooters Party. But the Labor Party's got a strong story in relation to these things. We just have to start telling it over and over again, making good decisions. So that's the challenge for us. A positive plan for the future of this state, being optimistic about people, making sure that we recognise in the Labor Party that the people of this state are ambitious. They're ambitious for themselves, they're ambitious for their families, they want to succeed. They want to make sure the Labor Party is a partner with them in that success. The whole purpose of the Labor Party was upward economic mobility, or making sure that people can make it in Australia. That it doesn't matter how much was in your mum or dad's bank account, it doesn't matter how much your dad earned or your mum earned, or whether you grew up in Mossman. You can go up anywhere in this country and make it because of public education and the institutions that we've put in place. That's largely Labor's legacy. That's Labor's legacy. But we have to ensure that's part of our narrative for the future as well. Look, I really want to take your questions, but I want to say this. If I become leader of the Labor Party, I don't want to run a political party or be the leader of a political party that just prays for the government to fail, that hopes the economy turns down, that people lose their jobs, and as a result we do well. I want to lead a political party that's successful because the people of this state believe we have the ideas and the people to make this state better, and they want to vote for us. A positive vote for the Labor Party. And that's what I offer, I think, in this leadership election campaign. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Chris. I wish you victory. I don't know you personally, but I know you through my brother Joe. My name is Nabiha Haddara. I'm a doctor in Ireland. I would like to call myself a family physician. And this is the point. I think the Labour Party lost the last election partly because of an issue. There was less concentration on family values. I mean, the impression of the people is that Labour Party is anti-family because there was a lot of emphasis on issues like gender fluidity and, a commissioner for the queer people. I'm not judgmental here. As a doctor, I can't be judgmental, but there was so much emphasis on these issues. I think that should be corrected. I know you're a family man. I think the Labour Party should stand for the family values because the family is like the building block of the community and the country and the nation. That's one issue. The other thing, you'll talk about the cost of electricity. I would like to know what's the position regarding the renewable energy sources, because like windmills and solar generation can produce about 4% of the need of the nation. So how do we get the 96%? I mean, you talked about privatization, versus ownership by the government. But what's the solution here?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. Well, the first one is obviously an important one, and there was a bit of discussion about the Labor Party and people of faith, people who believe in God. And they were saying the Labor Party is alienated from people of faith. And I really want to make this point. I'm a person of faith. I'm a Catholic, I'm a practicing Catholic. And not only do I not see that in competition with the Labor Party, it's the reason I joined the Labor Party. Because I was taught right throughout my childhood that it's your duty to care about social justice, the poor, and ensuring that no one was left behind. And to this day, I still believe that that's my obligation as a person of faith, to do something about it, even if it's something small, to devote yourself to the public, to devote yourself through public service to humanity. And I think that we forget that. And there are tons of people who are part of the Labor Party because they believe in religion. They believe in God. We can't be antagonistic to that. And I don't think the Liberal Party get away with murder, to be honest with you. Because I think that in many occasions, in many forums, they stand up and say, the Liberal Party is the party of religion. No one has a monopoly on religion. No political party. God doesn't touch either political party. It certainly doesn't touch the Liberal Party. And we have to create, I think, to use the phrase, some faith with these communities, that we do care about their issues, we care about their communities, and really focus on the issue of helping the poor and social justice, which are core values to the Labor Party.
Yes. Yep.
On the issue of electricity, there's a lot to do. So the Liberal Party run around saying, look, we care about renewable energy, we think it's important, we want to stand up for it. But 81% of the energy that's generated in New South Wales comes from 5 coal-fired power stations. And the renewable energy sector is quite small in terms of the proportion. But in South Australia, 50% of their renewable energy comes from, 50% of their energy comes from renewable energy. That's not a target in South Australia, that's reality today. The ACT has a renewable energy target of 100%. Victoria has a renewable energy target of 50%. So does Queensland. New South Wales has a renewable energy target of nothing, 0. And my point to you isn't one about the earth or the climate or the extreme weather changes that we're seeing as a result of climate change, although I do regard that as a huge problem. My point to you around renewable energy is that if we don't invest in it, it'll go to all those other states. And there's tons of jobs and opportunities that come as a result of this renewable energy revolution. And there's a big first mover advantage. Because if you've got capital and you want to invest in renewable energy and you want a return on that, you're going to go to Victoria and you're going to create jobs down there as a result. And we're going to miss out in the same instance. So I just think it makes sense on economic grounds, not even on environmental grounds. We need to do it on economic grounds. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think you have to strike a balance because the renewables are heavily subsidised by the government. So
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
What do you offer us for leadership, and if you do not win this leadership, you commit to supporting the Renewable Party?
Yes, very good question. Look, I'm not running against Jodie McKay, and I don't want to stand here and present myself in competition with her, or even in contrast to her. I'm not standing because I'm trying to block her, I'm standing in support of my own candidacy. And I do think that she's an exceptional candidate for the leadership of the Labor Party. And I give you a commitment, and I think we all do in the Labor Party. But if I lose this leadership election, it's my duty to unite with the team to take on the Liberal Party. And that's a promise, of course it is. Thank you.
Chris, over here.
Well, we just got back on the right moment.
Hey Chris, there is a rumor at the moment that Jodie McKay, she tried to join the Liberal Party before she applied for the Labour Party. Now, if she's been elected, hypothetical, what will happen if the two comes up? If she really tried to join the Liberal Party before she applied for the Labour Party? Why the head office doesn't come clear and clarify the situation? Because it's going around in the media around Sydney. It's any true about that, or just gossip, or if we have a leader, don't forget what happened in the past. We lost an election because of incompetence. That's why we lost the election, not because the leader was, the opposition leader was not fit enough to be an opposition leader. We don't want to have another second leader. We'll have a problem if that's true.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate the question. Look, my understanding is that Jodi's committed to, and my belief is that Jodi's committed to the Labor Party in New South Wales. I genuinely believe that. I think that for the last, she's actually gone through an extremely difficult period in the Labor Party where it was revealed that people were distributing, Labor people were distributing information against her in the 2007 state election. And notwithstanding that, she didn't lose faith with the Labor Party. She actually stood for another seat and recommitted to it. So I think that firmly speaks in favour of her position. But I'm not here to advocate for Jodi. I'm here to advocate for me. So look, in relation to me, if I could speak about my period in the Labor Party, I joined in 1998 when I was 18 years old. I've worked at every state, federal and local election, distributing how to votes at every single one of them for nearly, 21 years. My first one was when Kim Beazley lost the GST election, but I remember it being an energising and uplifting experience because in 1998 we won a ton of seats back after the loss in 96, and I just got this surge of hopefulness about the Labor Party, and even though I was playing an extremely small role in it, I felt like, I felt like a king. I felt like I was part of this great movement, this 130-year-old political movement. Yeah. And it gave me an enormous sense of comradeship and commonality with the Labor movement, that I was part of something bigger than myself. Yes, sir.
Hi, Ricky Panowitz. I have a question to talk about our transitioning economy and how you feel about a lot of lost opportunities within our economy, such as manufacturing jobs transitioning into different things, such as renewables, manufacturing renewables, decentralisation of industry out into the country areas, and the fact that now medical marijuana is on the table, and it's got nothing to do with drugs. It's an alternative medicine that's being produced throughout the world. How do you feel about these kind of jobs? Now, bearing in mind that we lost $1 billion, a potential of $1 billion industry out of Tamworth that moved into the most Republican conservative state over in America, that we could have kept within New South Wales as a burgeoning process of jobs.
Yeah. I think Ricky, is Ricky?
Yes.
I think you are absolutely right. I think you are bang on about the potential for New South Wales. And I think that it's got to do with a couple of things. The economy's become extremely reliant on the residential housing market and mining. And that means building things, we do it reasonably well, very well. And the commercial aspects around it, we do it very well. And mining, we do that well too. We're very efficient at digging it up and exporting it to other countries. But we don't have anywhere, we're nowhere when it comes to elaborately manufactured goods. And as I said in my opening statement, we dig up the core components of all of these things, these cameras and electric vehicles, but we don't have that manufacturing sector here in New South Wales. And when I've asked about it in recent times, people have said to me that if you've got a medium-sized business in New South Wales, then you're thinking about domestic consumers, domestic customers, so selling in Australia. But you're not thinking about potential exporting to other customers around the world.
Absolutely.
Which could double, triple, massively increase your customer base.
Why are we making trains?
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic argument. And I think that we're really in this point of view where we're really in this position where we aren't building things in this state, and we should be, and we can be, but it requires a role of government to start organising regions and parts of New South Wales that can do that work, because the unseen hand, the marketplace isn't doing it. And the idea, I mean, it really hit me hard that we would dig up all the raw components for things other countries around the world want to build, but not do it here, is a sad reality for us and our economy.
It's a missed opportunity.
It's a huge missed opportunity. I think it goes to something else really quick, and that is that I'm told that South Australia, Victoria and Austrade are the three best overseas export agencies that are government run. New South Wales virtually has nothing. So no one is going into our medium-sized businesses and saying, hey, have you thought about an export market in Europe or Asia or South America? No one. And so there's big missed opportunities that we're not taking advantage of that could spur economic growth.
The consortium I was talking about, based in Tamworth, in a LNP stronghold. When the former Premier decided that he'd basically have another trial. We've had trials all around the world. It's in production overseas as an alternate medicine, or an alternative to opium, which is a great scourge. We grow tons of opium down in Tasmania. I don't know if we all know that. And you know, that's a source of great amount of money. This money could be in New South Wales.
Yeah, I think we need to certainly explore it, and it's far less addictive than things like fentanyl and the extreme synthetic drugs that people are using for pain management.
I think, and the other point I'd like to bring up is about WestConnex.
Okay. Yep.
And the impact on our local community. WestConnex purchased the house, and a year later we walked down the street and said, "What are you doing?" And they're basically drilling under a few people in this room's house.
Yep. Okay. I'll answer that. Guys, WestConnex. The question was about WestConnex and toll roads. One thing that is not understood, and I think the Labor Party's done a terrible job of explaining to the people of this state, is that when all the toll roads are up and running, if you drive on it every day for your living, you'll pay something like $500,000 over the course of your working life in tolls. You'll be paying it off yourself, basically. And these things are here forever because they've been privatised. Not owned by the government, built by the government, nearly immediately privatised. They're in place. And the worst thing about these toll roads is they're effectively being paid for by the privatised electricity companies. So we miss out on the electricity companies, that's gone. And in lieu, we get a toll road. The only answer for Sydney, and in fact the only answer for major cities around the world, is public transport. That's the truth. We have to invest in it, we have to pay for it, whether we do it through value capture or going to the debt market. It actually creates jobs and economic growth once you build it.
We have to build it here.
That's right. Thanks, Ricky. Yes, sir.
Chris, good luck. I've got a couple of questions regarding the health system. You know, everyone's talking about renewable energies and all this kind of stuff. We're gonna, you know, it doesn't fit us right now. We need to see what's gonna fit what we need to fix up and help us now, right? Especially the pensioners, the people that have spent 40, 50, 60 years working for the state, paying all their taxes, then they have to wait 2 years for a hip surgery, 2 years for a knee surgery. That's what we should be talking about, not things that are going to affect us in 20 years and be selfish and just worry about something else. Also, when you go to emergency ward, spending 4 to 6 hours in an emergency ward, right, is ridiculous. Especially when you go inside the ward, you see 5 beds empty, lights off around it, 6 people just having a little meeting in the corner. How are we going to fix that stuff?
What did you just say that last bit again? 5 or 6
Well, I'll go into emergency ward after waiting 6 hours. You go into emergency ward, you sit with a doctor.
How many beds were vacant?
5 beds.
Okay.
All right, and the lights off around it.
Okay, I'll answer that. No, I will. I'll answer it. So what the government has done over the last 8 years is put a lot of the health budget into infrastructure. So building the hospitals, right? They're building these hospitals. Now the reason they do that is it's one-off spending. Once it's built, it's not a recurrent cost on the budget. What they haven't done is staff these hospitals. So you've got a situation down in Bega, for example, where they built a brand new hospital and the waiting times for elective surgery are worse today in the new hospital than they were in the dinky old one. So they worked out this great trick of building brand new shiny hospitals but not staffing them. So not enough nurses, not enough allied health workers, not enough doctors. Exactly. And that's really got to be, over the next 4 years, our focus. Making sure that we staff these hospitals, these public hospitals, so they can do the work of looking after family members, looking after the elderly. That's really our opportunity. We need to do it. And they're not happening at the moment.
That's the most important thing. But it just feels like every election, every person that comes through, they talk about that, but it hasn't changed in 20 years. You know, it's the same thing as for decades it's been happening like that. You know, I used to take my brother to the hospital when he was young. Same thing, 5 hours in emergency ward. Now sometimes I see he wait 6 hours. I went there once, the guy said he was waiting for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And the same people just talk about all these other things rather than things that matter now. We need stuff to happen now, especially for our elderly. They need to appreciate the 6 years that they spent in the workforce, waiting 2 years for a hip. They can't go fork out $5,000-6,000 for a hip surgery or something like that. So how do we fix that? That's what we want to know, how we're going to fix that.
Well, we need to invest in the public health system. We need to make sure it's not privatised, and we need to make sure that these brand new buildings are actually staffed with healthcare professionals. I mean, that's the three things I'd say. Particularly privatising public hospitals, which the government is intent on doing it whenever they can. The private sector, I mean, it's very problematic when the private sector gets involved in the health system, because if they're driving a profit, it's very difficult for you if you don't have any health training. I don't have any health training. And you go and see a doctor, and the doctor says, I think you need $20,000, $30,000 worth of surgery. You're not in a position to say, no, I don't. You're not. It's not a bargain. It's a service. It's a service being provided by the government. And as soon as a private operator is involved, like they are in the United States, they say it's a marketplace. The customer, the patient, turns up to the hospital, and the doctor, the provider, bargains with them. You're not in a position to bargain. How would you know? You're relying on the expertise of the healthcare professionals. So privatising these public hospitals is bad news. We can't support it. They need to be publicly run. Yeah. It's a service that's provided as a result of your taxes. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I feel like I've been very out of touch with what Australian people feel, because we don't watch commercial TV. Now, Labor have presented lots of policies, and Liberals have presented very few. And yet, the people of Australia listen to three-word slogans. We can have all the policies, the best policies in the world, but the people aren't hearing them because we don't have three-word slogans. You've got to be able to have a beer with everybody. You've got to go to church. You've got to sit and watch Game of Thrones, and you've got to watch sport, and that will get you elected. That seems so sad when we have policies that can really make it. So how can we get strategies that will get Labor elected? Not just policies, but we need strategies too.
Yes, yes. Well, very well said. That's very, very good point. Look, I think in terms of strategies, the Labor Party in New South Wales in particular was the best in the country. The New South Wales Labor Party was cutting edge in terms of campaigning and the ability to turn out volunteers and orders and change people's minds. I think we've lost the edge though.
We need three-word slogans.
Yeah.
Not long-winded answers.
Well, look, I still believe that the Labor Party needs to believe in things, and that ultimately, when we fully argue our point of view, we'll win at the ballot box. And I know that recent history would indicate that's not the case, particularly with the federal Labor Party. But one of the problems federally was wages have been so low in Australia for so long that really, for a lot of people, the only way to get ahead was in the property market. And the Labor Party went to the last election hitting property owners. And so for a lot of people, not necessarily rich people, they thought, well, I can't get ahead with wages because the government's so stingy, the private sector's so stingy, there's no movement in relation to wages. So I think to myself, well, invest in property.
But they didn't listen to that because you could still invest in property.
I know that, no, I appreciate that, but
people don't hear it.
Yes, that's true. So, I mean, I supported the policy as well, but I'm saying that we have to get, I think, smarter in the way we sell these things. I think the kind of top end of town rhetoric at the last election didn't work. I don't think a lot of people in Sydney believe in whacking the top end of town. I think that there's more of a sense of, I'd like to think they're a bit more sophisticated about what we're going to do with New South Wales, how the economy's going to change, how you're going to change the tax system to help people, help families. Make sure that if you do 40, 50 hours a week at work, the Labor Party's a partner with you in your success. I know a lot of people, I'll say this, in Macquarie Street, sometimes we're in a bit of a bubble, we all slap each other on the back, we all think it's going great, but then when I go to Saturday soccer and speak to other mums and dads on the sideline, it's a different world. And for a lot of parents, they're missing every second Saturday to work instead of spending time with their family, which is very sad. But some of them are starting to believe that the Liberal Party is associated with success and the Labor Party isn't associated with it at all. And it's not right. I mean, we want to reward people that want to work hard. We want them to get better, to progress, to meet their full potential. People meeting their full potential in this country is really what the Labor Party is all about. And the Liberal Party have been successful at trying to co-opt some of that language, but ultimately they don't believe in economic mobility. They're conservatives. They want to conserve the status quo. Frank, I've already got one from you. I'll get one
There's one here.
My name is Raj. Please, would like to mention something very important in your speech, like regarding the generation and leadership, which is very important. What's your plan as a young man to bring the young generation with us to win the next election?
Yes, good question. How do we get young people involved in the Labor Party? How do we get them interested in voting Labor? The best thing about getting young people to vote Labor is that you get them for several generations. They vote as they get old and they stick with the Labor Party. And the Labor Party did very well in 1972 and 1975 when Gough Whitlam was Prime Minister. That generation of Australians stuck with Labor and they still disproportionately vote Labor. That group of people. Now, the most disheartening thing about the last state election was watching young people walk straight past the Labor Party volunteers. And they'd go and grab on from the Greens or the Lockout Law Party. I think there's many ways that we can do it. We have to get young people involved in our branches, listen to their ideas about how to grow our party. In terms of policies, I think Sydney's really boring and lacks energy and excitement. We need to look at the lockout laws. Because I think they've clamped down a lot of the nighttime economy and really hurt the fun side of Sydney that used to be in evidence over the last 20 years. So there's things that we can specifically do to get young people involved and interested in the Labor Party. But if we don't do that, they'll vote for minor parties, and then we won't graft them onto Labor as they get older.
$700 million EDM festival circuit, gone overnight.
Very, very true.
Gone overnight.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chris. Firstly, my previous working background is from the shoe industry. Unfortunately, in the late 90s, textiles and shoe industry were the first to go as part of manufacturing and the reform. So then we move into the new generation. We jump to the taxi industry, and it seems like every small business is being targeted. Is there any way that your government would be looking at least bringing back the manufacturing back into Australia? All it seems now at the moment is the main concern is the Aussie dollar below the 70% over the US. You know, they're not concerned. While at the time where the dollar was about 51 cents, everybody was living comfortably, worked on Monday to Friday. If they wanted a bonus, they could have worked half a day on a Saturday. These days, we're doing 60 hours and we're barely surviving. The housing, you know, it's too expensive to rent. Even to buy, there's nothing under, you know, $1 million in the St. George area, which makes it very difficult for the upcoming new generation. Is there anything within your cabinet looking towards how we're going to give hope for this new generation that's coming up, that they dream of actually owning some part of a property at the moment with this? Unless they have a proper job, they can actually live and enjoy themselves.
We're on you.
All right. And my second part of the question is, we are Banksia Tigers a football club. We are part of this beautiful community. We thank all the councillors and the mayor for all their support for us and for the other clubs. including other codes that are in the region. But sadly, every time we go out, we feel like a black sheep, because we go to the north, we go to the south, the facilities are amazing. Yet when it comes down to us, the funding is honestly not that great. And we would like you, especially being a member for this region, to really look into the sporting facilities grants that we can have